YouTube won't pull up. So anyways, sometimes a limit does not exist. And there are several reasons why. We're going to look at several different scenarios as to why the limit doesn't exist. And in general, it's because the y values are not headed to one single y value as you are approaching that certain x value. So the first example that I want us to look at here is a piecewise function. Okay, it is a piecewise function. It looks like the function negative 2x plus 3 when our x values are less than 4, and it looks like 3x squared when our x values are greater than or equal to 4. So if they ask us to find the limit as x is approaching 4, here's what we need to do. We need to find out, okay, on the left side of this, when x is less than 4, on the left side of this, what y value are we headed to? So if x equals 4, for the left side, what y value are we headed to? Which piece is the left side of the function? The top piece or the bottom piece? The top piece. Okay, so what is the value of the top piece when x equals 4? Negative 5. We plug in 4. Negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. Plus 3 is negative 5. Okay? How about the right side? When x equals 4, what y value are we approaching? 48. 4 squared is 16. 3 times 16 is 48. So that means the left side is approaching that y value of negative 5. The right side is way up here at 48. So as we're getting closer and closer to 4, we're headed to 2 different y values. So that's why this limit does not exist. D and E is what we write for does not exist. And what I'm going to want you to do on the worksheet, the majority of the problems in this section, the limit does not exist. You need to give a reason why. So here's the reason why on the piecewise functions. The 2 different y values are the reason why on the piecewise function. Yes, ma'am?
So if they don't match up after you plug it in.
Right. Now, if they do match up, then that limit would exist. If those both equaled negative 5 or if they both equaled 48, that would be the limit as we approached 4. But because they do not match up, then the limit does not exist. Okay, let's, on B, the limit as x approaches 5 of 6 times the absolute value of x minus 5 over x minus 5. Now, you got to be careful with this. You can't just cancel out the x minus 5s because the one on the top, those aren't parentheses, those are absolute value bars. Okay, those are absolute value bars. So we can't just cancel them out. So let's look at our calculator to see what's going on with this function. So we need to put parentheses around the entire numerator, 6, absolute value, math, num, ABS, x minus 5. Close the parentheses on the absolute value, close the parentheses on the numerator, divided by, got to put parentheses around the denominator, parentheses x minus 5. Okay? So we are going to look at this function as we are approaching 5. Now, one thing I don't like about this calculator is that it throws that little vertical line in there. That vertical line is not actually there. Okay, let's look at the table just to see what's happening. Okay, when our x value on the left side of 5, all of our x values are equal to negative 6. At 5, if we were to just plug 5 into that, we would get that bad case where we have 0 over 0. Remember Friday we talked about 0 over 0 being indeterminate. It's not good. It means your function's undefined. We get an error at 5. We can't just plug 5 into our function to find out the limit. Then to the right side of 5, when the y values, or excuse me, when the x values are greater than 5, we equal positive 6. So once again, from the left side and from the right side, we are approaching 2 different values. This limit does not exist. And under that, I want you to write left side is approaching negative 6, right side is approaching positive 6. Now, if they were to ask you a question like this on the final exam, they're just looking for the answer that it does not exist. But I'm wanting you to become familiar with these scenarios. For those of you that are going to take calculus, If you are familiar with these different cases of why things do not exist, you got a leg up, okay? All right, let's look at C, the limit as x approaches 1 of x squared over x minus 1. If our first reaction is to just plug it in, so we get 1 squared over 0. So it's not the indeterminate form. 1 divided by 0 is just simply undefined. So typically when your function's undefined, the limit's not going to exist. But can anybody tell me what's happening at 1 before I graph it? What's happening at x equals 1 with this function? Well, I know it's an error, but why is it an error? What do we call it? We're dividing by 0, so it's a vertical asymptote. Okay, it's a vertical asymptote. So same thing here. If we, let me adjust my window a little bit so that I can focus on these values here. Okay, here's just a little bit of a zoomed in version of my function. Okay, on the left side of positive 1 here, my y values are going down. On the right side of positive 1, the y values are going up. So this one also does not exist. It's because there's a vertical asymptote at x equals 1. And then I want you to do the same thing with the left side and the right side. The left side is going to negative infinity. The right side is going to positive infinity. Okay, so like I said,